our inauguration day in the United States of America. As Britt Hume said, it is a very special moment for the country as we watch this transition of power.
Thanks for watching our special coverage of President Trump's inauguration, the 47th president of the United States. The 5, live from D.C. is next. We'll take you back to Capital One Arena and play us out.
President Trump is about to arrive at the Capital One Arena for his inauguration parade. He is expected to fire up that packed crowd there and give a speech as well as sign a series of executive orders. Hello, everyone. I'm Dana Perino along with Judge Janine Pirro, Hereford Jr., Jesse Waters, and Greg Gupton. It's 5 o'clock in Washington, D.C., and this is The 5.
Preserve, protect, and defend.
Preserve, protect, and defend.
The Constitution of the United States.
The Constitution of the United States.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations, Mr. President.
45 is now 47. Donald Trump getting sworn into office as President of the United States, completing a political comeback unparalleled in history. And earlier, during his second inaugural address, the president declaring America's decline is over and the golden age of America has just begun.
The golden age of America begins right now. From this day forward, our country will flourish and be respected again all over the world. America's decline is over. Our liberties and our nation's glorious destiny will
How is that a clip?
And we will immediately restore the integrity, competency, and loyalty of America's government.
The fucking pancake block.
Purpose and speed to bring back hope, prosperity, safety, and peace for citizens of every race, religion, color, and creed. For American citizens, January 20th, 2025 is Liberation Day. Many people thought it was impossible for me to stage such a historic political comeback. But as you see today, here I am. The American people have spoken. I am with you. I will fight for you. And I will win for you. We're going to win like never before.
We are following all the developments, but we will take it around the table for as long as we can. Start with you, Jesse, and your observations from today.
This was a man who's met his destiny. He said he was saved by God in order to make America great again and usher in a new golden age. And the concentration of power that you saw in that room, probably the greatest concentration of power since the Constitutional Convention, made viewers and the country believe it was possible, because they were all getting along, and you saw the potential in this country when people do get along. At one point he said a tide of change is sweeping America and sunlight is pouring over the entire world. And he said something necessary, and a lot of people maybe didn't like it on the other side, but he said the Democrats and Joe Biden have betrayed this country. That was the cold, hard truth, and it needed to be said to his face, because we don't fear that anymore. It was probably the most ambitious speech ever given by a human being. We're going to plant the stars and stripes on Mars. We're going to make America healthy again. We're going to seal the border. We're going to beat inflation. We're going to save our cities. And a lot of people watching felt that it was possible today. A lot of the times you hear politicians run their mouths and you're like, all right, this is just another political speech. This wasn't a political speech. This was a speech made by a hero. And he says the ambition is the lifeblood of a great nation. talks about the spirit of the frontier, the call to adventure, and tied it back to the history of this great country. We came and we conquered and tamed the wilderness, tamed fascism, communism, and split the atom. So at one point he said, I stand before you as proof that nothing is impossible, that the impossible is what we do best. This was the hope and change speech that Obama never really delivered on. When they said, Barack and Joe, they wanted to fundamentally change America, this agenda is about fundamentally changing America because we're in transformational times. The media is changing. We're changing how we feel about our health. We're changing our economy. We're changing technology. The map is changing. Literally, he said, we want to take
A broken fucking play.
And it was the most inspiring speech he's ever given that I've personally ever heard. And it's an exciting time to be alive.
Greg, the one thing, though, that really didn't change is that throughout the campaign, ever since he announced his run, he said, these are the issues I'm going to work on. And then today he's like, and I'm going to deliver on those very same issues.
Yeah, no, he never wavered. During the speech, as I was listening, all I was doing was looking at Joe. You know, watching him as 4 years, the last 4 years was handed to him like a sizzling Trump steak. This wasn't an in-your-face Harold. It was an in-your-face and up-your-ass Joe. It was humiliating. But I think this event is different because it's not just about Trump. It's about everyone involved who had a personal journey that paralleled Trump. Because if you supported him, you were thrown into battle. So this was like a convergence of stories into one victorious moment. Everybody involved in this felt it. It felt bigger than a typical inauguration. Trump took it away from the left versus right dichotomy by using 2 words that everyone needed to hear: common sense, right? It's something that we lost under Biden when you looked at the border and the crime and the trans hysteria. It was an attack on common sense, and we needed the middle ground. We needed to go from wanting to deciding, and Trump was there. His speech was very clear. I saw how the New York Times portrayed it as grim, and it was because he was doing so much that was literally in your face. But that's what happens when you push a country too far. Not only did you push Americans too far under the Biden administration, if they pushed back, you would be punished by cancellation. And that's another thing that Trump did. He took the fear of cancellation off the table. You could share the risk. Everybody shared the risk. Musk, RFK Jr., Tulsi, all these people came in because they realized if you shared the risk, they can't come after everybody. So daddy's home. And they may be pissed, but America couldn't be happier.
Judge, one of the things that was pretty interesting, too, was that he gave a speech after the speech. So, and I think it seems to me that he's having a great time.
I think he's not only having a great time, I think he feels the energy that America is feeling today. You know, when he talks about a golden era or a golden age, you know, and a new dawn, and he talks about Liberation Day, so many of us feel the same way. We felt that way on the Wednesday, November 6th, when we realized that we're going to have a president who is not just a president. This man is a man who was delivered to the Oval Office in spite of everything that they did to him, because he was a populist president. He reflected what the people wanted. The people wanted to make sure that there was no more censorship, that there was no more suppression of free speech. The people want the sub closed. You know, the people want the ability to make sure that their girls are safe in sports and that men don't play in sports. And as he ticked through all these executive orders, it was exactly what he said it was going to be. A common sense agenda. Since when do boys get to beat up or beat on girls in girls' sports? I mean, it's lunacy. And, you know, there was one sentence that was compelling for me, and it stopped me when I was listening to it, and it was, my life was saved for a reason, and you made reference to this, Jesse. My life was saved for a reason. I was saved by God. And it was a reminder that we are one nation under God. And then you saw the reaction on camera from individuals at the arena. And this country believes in God. We believe in religion. We are Christian, whether Christian or Jewish or Muslim, doesn't matter. You believe in God. And I think are tough, we are strong, and they're not going to be able
I called him a pragmatic optimist. I don't know if that is what he would describe himself as, but he's realistic, but he's also saying we can do this. Just want to point out the first family now, a lot of the grandchildren are taking their seats. It's at Capital One Arena. There's 20,000 people there. It's a modified parade where we're sitting, Harold, is overlooking the White House where the parade would have been had it not been moved inside. But it is very cold, and for the safety of everybody, it was moved in order to protect people from getting frostbite, which we are certainly not going to get here. You and I were on earlier today. You've had a few hours to think about more, and I'll turn it over to you for that.
No, it's good to be back with the crew here. I don't disagree with a lot that's been said. I would only add that today is the start of what many of you around the table and many of the president's supporters, and I would argue even some of President Biden's supporters, now that President Trump was the president-elect and now president of the United States, fundamentally he won because of some of the things you mentioned, Greg, about, and some of the things you mentioned, Judge, about culture, and I thought the speech certainly harkened to some of the big historical things, historical moments in our nation's history. But fundamentally, the economy isn't working for everybody. People who win presidential elections, if they get reelected, that means the country is affirming what they've done and want to move even further in a direction. And people who are defeated, if they're running again, it's because the centers in the country want something different. President Trump had on that stage with him, Jesse, some of the great investors and innovators in this nation's history. I don't know if I can go as far as to say he's the most august group, but certainly the richest and most prolific group in terms of that. That group there, in some ways, their presence and their success flies in the face of some of the things the president said about how bad things are in the country. But I interpret in its most favorable light what the president says, that we can be better. The two economies we have where people who are doing really well have done much better and people who are not doing as well are still living check to check or month by month. That's the group that elected President Trump president. That's the group that's going to be depending on him the most and relying on him the most to deliver. Cutting taxes, cutting regulations, raising tariffs. If this is the winning formula, the president's got it. I'd say to my Democrat friends, as I said earlier, Dana, the one thing that I found refreshing about President Trump is that he can say one thing Monday and really believe it, but if it doesn't work Tuesday, he'll change. And if some of the things he's talking about, if they don't work, I hope the president has the courage to be himself and to change course and to do what's in the best interest and get us all to higher ground in a faster way. So I wish him nothing but the best.
One of the things he talked about is getting rid of the woke agenda, and he talked about there will be two genders, and apparently a few people that were at the Capital One Arena told me that the people watching the speech cheered the loudest for this. Let's listen quickly to the president here.
I will also end the government policy of trying to socially engineer race and gender into every aspect of public and private life. We will forge a society that is colorblind and merit-based. As of today, it will henceforth be the official policy of the United States government that there are only two genders, male and female.
And this might take the left by surprise, that this is getting the kind of reaction that it's getting.
A common sense revolution, that was the other big theme of the speech. And when you have two terms framed up like Biden and Trump's together, it's so easy to compare and contrast. And the human race, what separates us from the beast is that we have reason. We are a rational people. And so you can use logic to see what works and what doesn't, and it seems like there's an agreement among the population. We know what works, we know what doesn't, we're going in this direction now. And we don't need to worry about the past, because the past is over. I want to just add a few things Greg said. He talked about the people surrounding President Trump. And it's so different than Joe Biden. You'd see Joe Biden, and then he'd leave, and he wouldn't talk to anybody. And Donald Trump is running 30 minutes late because he's talking to everybody and makes everybody around him better. We watched this yesterday where he was calling out people in the rally. There's the wall, the guy that comes to every rally dressed as a wall. There's Abe Lincoln. Little shorter than Abe Lincoln was, but he makes people feel good and he brings out the best in everybody.
Including Governor Abbott today, who we saw in the crowd, who took a lot for the country on the failed border crisis, and he pointed him out as well.
Yeah, he said, wow, imagine if I had talked badly about him, and he happened to be right there in the front row, but also to what Greg said about the media can't cover Donald Trump. The media, as it's designed, isn't equipped to cover this man because the media is designed to thrive in a partisan atmosphere and where people don't have access to all of the information. That's over now. And so the media covers Donald Trump for what he isn't, not what he is, and that's why he's failing. Another great point made by Greg, I hate to say it.
Wow, his head's going to explode over here.
The fear factor is gone. I feel it, you feel it. We're not afraid to say what we feel anymore. We're not afraid of getting indicted by weaponized prosecutors anymore. I was at the gym today. I was breaking through all sorts of limitations that I had placed on myself mentally.
Beautiful.
Everybody feels it. We're all feeling pretty happy.
I see Barron Trump there. So just so that you know, what we're doing right now is waiting for President Trump. He's going to arrive there at Capital One Arena to give some remarks, and he'll be signing some executive orders there with a great little desk that they put forward. Can I just pick us on caller number 4 and have Greg talk to either the woke agenda or this, because this is a topic Greg's talked about a lot, and that is energy.
I will also declare a national energy emergency. We will drill, baby, drill. We will be a rich nation again, and it is that liquid gold under our feet that will help to do it. With my actions today, we will end the Green New Deal and we will revoke the electric vehicle mandate. You'll be able to buy the car of your choice.
And Americans over the last 4 years have really gotten an education on energy.
Yeah, you know, this reminds me of those great videos of a giant building in a controlled demolition. We're just watching the last 4 years just go... Jesse said something great. Wow. The reciprocity about the comparison. It is easy to compare the terms. And I said that, you know, the Biden term was a horrible halftime show between two Trump halves. And it might have had to been necessary to remind people how bad it can get, while giving the Donald Trump especially, time to think about how to do it better. What needs improvement, what to prepare for. Perhaps you needed to walk through the swamp, you know, to before you can return triumphantly. I also want to credit, I think a lot of this, and I brought this up constantly in the last 2 years, the turning point to me was the destruction of the tentpole hoax, the Fine People hoax. You know, people wonder why I talked about it all the time. It's because every person who investigated the Fine People hoax found it to be a lie, and it undermined every single assumption they had about the media's stories. And so once, like you saw this, there was this billionaire tech guy saying he decided to come out for Trump after realizing that Trump never said Nazis were fine people. That one thing, and I got to go back to, you know, I can't think of the guy's name on Breitbart, but Scott Adams and other people that had been pushing this, Joe Pollack and Steve Cortez. These were the guys that were just saying, this is where it starts. This is the thing that Joe claimed got him to run, and it was all a huge, destructive lie that hurt so many people.
The other thing, Judge, is that already at noon today, President Biden's CBP-1 app is gone. Here's President Trump. This is stop number 11 on the border as we wait for President Trump to arrive.
I will declare a national emergency at our southern border. All illegal entry will immediately be halted, and we will begin the process of returning millions and millions of criminal aliens back to the places from which they came. We will reinstate my Remain in Mexico policy. I will end the practice of catch and release. And I will send troops to the southern border to repel the disastrous invasion of our country. We will also be designating the cartels as foreign terrorist organizations.
Judge, your take.
You know, first of all, the thing about Donald Trump is you believe him. When he says I'm going to do something, you know he can do it, and you know he will make it happen. And that's the difference between the promises that a lot of politicians make and the reality of Donald Trump. He's got this ability, whether it's based upon his business past or a simple determination based upon what we've seen in the last 4 years alone. He's going to make these things happen. And when he talks about common sense, Dana, this is what he's talking about. Why do we have open borders? Did any Democrat ever answer that question to any American? Why were our borders open? Why were these people not vetted? Why was there no DNA taken of the children? Why are we missing 300,000 children? And as President Trump, the president went through the list, Joe Biden was sitting there, and they had the camera on him, and it just seemed like he just sat there and got smaller and smaller, because there was no justification for that. There was no reason for him to do that to America, whether it's economically or for all of the disasters that have happened as a result of it. And, you know, the raid in Mexico, the fact that he's naming them a terrorist organization, and what about cartels? Well, that pretty much has to do with it's an international foreign cartel. It's almost a RICO on an international level. There's a lot of banking and transactions transactional stuff that will be shut down for them. But then when he added the military at the border, you know, that is another issue that people are, I'm sure the left is going to be concerned about, Posse Comitatus. But more importantly is, if you've got a foreign terrorist at our border, then we're going to make sure that you don't enter into this country, and we will use the military against you. You're not going to bring poison into America and kill young Americans, and you're not going to be able to funnel this cartel that you have in this country. And those two come together very carefully, the military at the border and the designation of a foreign terrorist organization. And I got to say one more thing, the electric cars. Americans were never into it. We didn't want it. With all the nonsense, who's the Secretary of Energy who had an interest in some of the...
Granholm.
Yeah, Granholm, Elizabeth Granholm, that she didn't want to divest herself. I mean, it was all about money, and that was terrible. But for me, I'm heating my gas stove. You can't force me to get an electric stove.
A lot of these blue cities and states now, Harold, are looking at the fact that the border is everywhere. The border problem is now also at their front door. And like, for example, in Massachusetts, they might not have expected that in Boston, but they have it now. And there are some Democrats starting to say, we want to work with you. Eric Adams, the mayor of New York City, is one of them. Do you anticipate that Democrats finding a way to get their footing when it comes to immigration?
I do. Look, I think campaigns, particularly presidential campaigns, are about looking forward. If you win, it's because you're looking forward. I'll remind everybody on the electric car matter, the richest man in the world makes electric cars, sends people to space, and is developing AI. All things that look forward. And the thing that I think is most interesting about President Trump, and one of the defining elements of his resiliency, is that he's able to do that. So do I think Democrats will find ways to work with them, some of them? Absolutely. You're already hearing some of them, including the senator from the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, John Fetterman, who's made clear that he'd like to work with us. Some may say these people have motivations that are political, and I would say that you're right. That's what politics is about. I think one of the things that Democrats have to accept today is that Donald Trump, like FDR and LBJ and Reagan, understands power.
Harold, I'm sorry to stop you there, but Usha Vance and the Vice President, J.D. Vance, and their 3 children are being announced now, and we'll listen in.
The fuck was that?
assassination attempt on the life of President Trump in Butler, Pennsylvania, July 13, 2024. Their formation consists of Pennsylvania State Police, local police, county sheriffs, emergency services unit, EMS, 911 radio dispatch, and hospital personnel, who all heroically stepped into action during the horrific attack. They are also paying tribute to the courageous service of first responders nationwide. Ladies and gentlemen, at this very special event, let us now take a moment of silence in honor of Corey Comparatori. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
And the show must go on, even though it is inside. This is not the inaugural parade that you're used to, but because of the weather, it has moved indoors. And so they're at Capital One Arena, just not too far from the White House here. And Jesse, you mentioned that as we look around the room, that it's like a State of the Union almost, because you have different representations of people, including the citizens and the civilians and the first responders of Butler County, where President Trump took the bullet.
Yeah, he had Corey's jacket there being paraded through, and as you mentioned just now, they have some of the hostage families there in yellow. And they have all the symbolism of a State of the Union, where they use individuals to make a point. And maybe people around the table don't like the British pomp and circumstance looking this way, but I love the lineage that we can tie back to the British with the royal red and the beautiful orchestra we heard throughout the day. Melania looks incredible. Yep. I think I speak for all Americans, probably one of the most unifying things I've ever said. I just get the hat. I can't get over the hat. I don't know what it means. I just can't stop looking at it. What does the hat mean?
It is a tribute to the late great actor Lee Van Cleef.
Well, I'm going to believe that because the hat is on fire. Barron, it must be said, the camera loves Barron. There's a mystery to Barron because you don't see him a lot and he doesn't express himself a lot. But there's something about him that makes me think he has a lot in common with his father. And he might step into a leadership role if he wants to, maybe not. The JD factor, the youth,
yeah.
It looks like he needed a little help wrangling the kids at one point, but I just love the fact that the kids are there and it breathes new life into the American political system when you have a young vice president like that with his...
Well, children bring joy no matter where they go or where they are, and so that is also going to be fun to watch them. And Usha Vance seems like a very cheerful person and a great mother too, and a brilliant lawyer. Speaking of lawyers, we have two at the table, but we have three who play ones on TV. That would be us. At 11:41 today, Judge, Joe Biden pardoned many of his family members, preemptive pardons. This is in addition to all the other pardons he had done around 11 a.m. And it's my contention, my belief that President Trump didn't know about these because they announced them after he had already walked into the rotunda. And it is quite brazen. And I think Democrats are going to have a hard time answering it. So let's start with you, and then we'll see how Harold does.
Well, it's very interesting, and yet to me it was stunning, although there's certainly been rumors about this, that Joe Biden decides that he's going to pardon pretty much all of his family, you know, the members, Harold, of the Biden crime syndicate, his brother Joe, and his son, and I think some in-laws, Mark Milley, Anthony Fauci, preemptive pardon. Meaning they aren't charged with anything, but we're going to tie the hands of the next Attorney General to make sure that she, does not indict anyone. But I think what's so stunning is that the justification for this, Dana, where the statement from the Biden White House was, these people do not deserve to be targets of unjustified and politically motivated prosecutions. Talk about the pot calling the kettle black. The only people who have been victims of unjustified and politically motivated prosecutions are the Republicans who have suffered at the hands of a weaponized Biden Justice Department. And they then add that these pardons shouldn't be mistaken as an acknowledgement that they've engaged in any wrongdoing. And yet the same Biden administration is objecting to any pardoning of the J6 hostages by saying that, well, if Trump gives them a pardon, it's got to be an admission of guilt. I mean, it's typical hypocrisy that and I'm sure most of America would be happy to get rid of going forward because we don't have to deal with that hypocrisy anymore. But the shame of this is that it is a recognition that that there is and was a
Has it while in office to pardon people is the most sweeping authority, the most unchecked authority, because you can't reverse it. The only thing we can reverse it is if people commit another crime. The real precedent here, I think the January 6th comparison, it will be those that President Trump pardoned some of the January 6th or all of them. There will be people saying, well, you should not have pardoned your family. I think the real precedent here, Judge, is that these are pre-pardons. And basically what happens is you set a precedent for every president to perhaps give a pre-pardon to friends or family or those he's close to. I think the insult and injury around this one is that President Biden, when he was asked repeatedly, will you pardon your son Hunter, said no. Then he decided sounds like at the last minute to do it, which was fine if you just said, hey, I'm going to pardon my son. But when you add to it, he's been prosecuted selectively, or he was singled out. I think that's what gave people a little bit of a bad taste. I've gotten a lot of texts today, Dana around the room this morning, from Democrat and Republican friends alike, who did not like this. Thought it would leave a bad taste in the mouths of people. Now, sometimes you eat something you don't like and the taste goes away once you eat something you do like. So maybe people will forget this. I think the real thing here is the precedent. Do you now say to presidents, when you're leaving office, you can pre-pardon or precondition pardons for friends and for family if you think they may be singled out for some reason by the next administration? I hope that's not the precedent, but I think that, to me, Judge, that stands out more than anything else.
Yes, there was. I mean, you covered it quite a bit in terms of James Biden and Hunter Biden were quite simpatico.
Right, and any investigation was blocked into the family at all corners. And so it looks really suspicious to preemptively do that, and it looks slimy. And to go out in the final hours issuing pardons to your entire family just looks disgusting.
With 19 minutes to go.
It's so dirty and just the perfect ending to the Biden administration. Fauci's pardon is bizarre because it's backdated to 2014. And in 2014, that's when he began the gain-of-function research, right? Which leads me to believe maybe COVID-19 was a Fauci baby. We already know he trained the people in China on how to do gain-of-function. We knew he funded that lab, but this specific strain, that leads me to believe that there's something more to uncover. It makes me highly suspicious. I don't get Milley. I don't understand why all of a sudden he gets a pardon, Cheney, Kinzinger, and I need to know whether they lobbied for these pardons, because that's important, or if any money changed hands, because you know the Biden family's very easy to bribe.
Well, first of all, he pardoned 5 family members, 4 of whom we've never really even heard of. So that was to make it appear that he was not protecting
Fuck you.
someone. was like, I'm doing all these people, but it was really about his brother. So it's like that episode of Murder, She Wrote, where this guy poisons a bunch of people, so it's not like he just poisoned his wife, so then it throws the scent off him. You remember that episode?
That was like Law and Order, too.
Yeah, it was Law and Order. They just assumed that would throw us off the stench. But you're right, it does stink. This isn't a bad look. This is scummy. The final act of a scoundrel is literally a stink bomb thrown as you exit the building. And, accepting the pardon, is that accepting guilt? I say yes. I really do. And is Adam Kinzinger going to refuse the pardon because he said he didn't want one? And I do think that regardless of pardons, you still investigate. It doesn't say you can't investigate, especially with Fauci. I mean, you know what? If you can't throw him in jail, at least make it so that he's forever known for what he did. And that's the same thing with the Jan 6 committee. Maybe they won't go to jail, but we got to find out exactly what they knew and what they hid.
So Rand Paul could bring Fauci in.
Yeah, why not? Yeah.
And he has to talk, right?
Yeah.
He has to talk.
Yes.
And he has no reason not to. He's pardoned.
Right. There's no fifth anymore.
Right.
We want to also talk about the fact that Donald Trump, you see him there with J.D. Vance, and I believe that's J.D. Vance's oldest son, who is trying really hard. Pay attention there. He is a little bit sleepy, and they're holding him up. In a few minutes after the parade goes on for a while, Judge, you'll hear a speech from President Trump, and he's going to sign several executive orders. So tell me your thoughts on that as it gets underway.
I am so excited about the president signing these executive orders. There's his desk in the arena, and it's got the presidential seal, as you and I were talking about earlier. But what the president is doing is he's saying to those 20,000 people in the arena and to the American people, this is for you. You are a part of this. I am signing this to tell you that the promises made are going to be met and they're going to be delivered. And he will tell everyone what they are. And so the American people can see that of these 200 executive orders that he's going to sign, compared to 4 that he did in his first term, and apparently Biden in his first day did 22. But these 200 are the promises kept to the American people, and we will be included in it. And I think it's a wonderful way for the president to admit that he is there because of the American people.
A little bit of shock and awe at the beginning.
Yeah, I'm really cold right now.
Yeah.
We all are.
You got 16 minutes.
It's interesting to me that the Republicans and Democrats have a reverse problem. The Republicans had the right ideas and have had the right ideas, but they were lousy on persuasion. I mean, think about Trump, who was before, Mitt Romney. Trump comes in and injects persuasion into this. The Democrat had the reverse problem. They have toxic ideas, but the persuasion was powerful. The persuasion was, if you come out against these ideas, you will be considered a racist, a homophobe, whatever. So it was the fear of cancellation. That was their persuasion. Now that the Republicans have discovered persuasion through Trump, with clear, concise ideas, hard work, achievement, a return to law and order, all of these things, you're left with the Democrats being exposed as empty vessels. If they don't jettison these ideas, the identity politics that have forced them to deceive Americans, they're done.
Harold.
I don't disagree with a lot that's been said, but I would just remind everybody of 2 things. One, the race is over. President Trump is now the president of the United States. He's now sworn in as the 47th president. I do find it interesting, Judge, that he's going to sign these orders today. I hope I agree with some, if not all of them. But if we're going to talk about admissions, and I think one can make a credible argument that a pardon is an admission to something. When you have the majority in the House, even though a narrow one, and you have the majority in the Senate by 3 votes, you normally sign executive orders when you can't get something through Congress. So I know the president knows, and his White House counsel, and everyone in that White House knows that the last things you do as president are passed by the House and the Senate and signed by the president. That's one of the reasons this TikTok thing is so interesting, because it was passed by the House, passed by the Senate, signed by the then president, former president now, and then ratified by SCOTUS. So I'm looking forward to the stuff on energy. I think the energy stuff is most interesting because I think it can help unleash more growth and lower prices. And the president has made clear he wants to make things more affordable. On a very personal note, I want to congratulate my friends at the Capital One Arena, Raul Fernandez and Ted Leonis. You guys have one heck of a job adjusting so quickly to be able to allow, as Greg said so well, to let people walk in a circle there and have a...
They had a hockey match there on Saturday night.
They certainly did.
It all around.
They certainly did. Congratulations to those guys.
I mean,
Well,
I don't know.
not a tennis match, it's just a hockey
Game.
You had a great analogy last week with Barry Sanders.
That'll do me for a while.
Dealing with house money. Some of these executive orders, I don't know if we've even talked about it. He yanked his security clearances if he's 51.
Oh, I know. Yeah, that's a great
lied about the laptop, and that's the lifeblood of how they make money in the private sector.
Right.
The in-person work is back. We're going to have to come into the workplace now. Ending DEI. And to Greg's point, Republicans, besides the persuasion thing, there's no fear of being called racist, a bigot. The Republicans were so skittish about taking bold action. Now they don't have to worry about that anymore on the border. You saw it today when the media immediately put out a video of some migrant crying when her order app didn't work. That's not going to move the needle anymore.
Right.
Some of these executive orders on the border are going to take immediate action. Catch and release, gone. Remain in Mexico, immediately enacted. That's going to have a very, very quick result. Wind leases. So people to shore, we were dying for President Trump to kill those wind farms because they were just destroying the environment, killing whales. The fishermen hated it. All of the tourists and the homeowners hated it. No more wind farms off the coast. Thank you.
One of the ones that I thought that struck me was reduce civil service protection for federal workers. Now, we've known that a lot of federal workers, since the pandemic, are still working remotely. Then we heard now they want to work 4 days a week only. They don't want to come back. And, you know, the glut of the federal government and the size of the federal government is, you know, a real problem for, you know, for the budget. And the real problem has been the inability to get rid of some people in the federal government. And he's going to start tackling that. It's going to make a big difference.
The funny thing and the sad thing at the same time, having to do orders to get people back to do their job. Some of these people go in 1 day a month. And then you think about, like, you know, the border of decisions, and you think about there are only two genders. It's kind of sad that we have to say this. It's like we're in the state of our culture that you actually have an executive order about biology because we've allowed the country to slide into this bizarre cultural Marxism, and that has allowed us to undermine just basic common sense. And now we actually have to say this stuff. It's freaky.
You can have an executive order that crime is illegal.
Exactly. Exactly.
Well, I want to also play for you, this is a media montage of a lot of frustration from other places about the tech titans being there today. Watch.
We're about to enter an era of deep fakes and all sorts of misinformation, and the degree to which those fine gentlemen play a role or do not play a role will be pivotal in terms of where the American people are 4 years from now.
They've better seats than people who are going to actually serve in Donald Trump's administration.
How is this happening?
Only in America.
How is this happening? Why are people with tons of money up on the dais?
That is so real.
Oh man.
Right.
You know what I think? I think that was fake Tapper, not Jake Tapper. I think that was misinformation. You know, even if you believe the Tech brothers will somehow come together and create misinformation, they can't even approach the scope, the scale, the breadth of the Joe Biden cover-up. That wasn't done by the Tech brothers. That was done by you guys. You know, the Tech brothers didn't tell us Joe was fine. You know, they didn't reject their noble vocation and refuse to do journalism. That was you guys. No one will ever be as bad as contemporary media for us. I mean, they are DOA. No one takes that
So
seriously.
the DEI, we could keep the alphabet going. One of the things, Harold, that we're in a big race with some of our biggest adversaries, like China, when it comes to technology, in particular with defense weaponry. And President Trump said, okay, I get it, and I want to help you. And these tech titans, yeah, they are rich for a reason. They figured something out. They've innovated.
Yeah, I'm not as bothered by their presence. I think, to your point, Dana, they represent to me the dominance that we have in technology and innovation, the dominance that we enjoy in creating things that make life easier and simpler and less expensive for people. I think to your point about defense, I think President Trump wanted to send a message to Putin and to Xi today. We talk about messages he wants to send. I sometimes don't agree with President Trump, but I think for those leaders, I agree with him today, for those leaders in those countries to see the greatest minds, the most prolific thinkers, investors, and innovators that our country has on stage with a president who many did not support 4 years ago, or maybe even 2 years ago, for that matter, even a year ago, to say that we're united, I think is a very, very powerful and compelling thing. Now, there will be differences between those guys as time goes on. I understand, I think what some of our colleagues and other networks were saying, but to see this kind of leadership and to see this kind of projection of leadership, as long as it's done responsibly and accountably and powerfully, this is a wonderful thing for the country. When you consider the kind of defense buildup we're going to have to do in the next 4 years, the kinds of things we'll have to invest in that make life better for every American and make life more accessible, good things in life more accessible. So I was pleased by this today more than I was bothered.
Judge, you know, I think that when you look at all these are transactional, but they didn't want to be subjected to the heavy hand that if you don't do what we tell you to do, that, you know, you're going to be subject to an SEC investigation or some investigation. And maybe they believe that Donald Trump is part of, you know, a new golden era in America, that the animal spirits are up, and that they're going to make more money. You know, it can be as simple as, you know, it's not negative the way these people on the left are making it. It's good for America, it's good for them, it's good for business, and, you know, it's constitutional.
But I'll tell you, they're not, the Democrats, they're not the only ones raising issues. It may be uncomfortable to talk about, but there are some Republicans, including some of President Trump's MAGA supporters, who don't like this presence of the big tech leaders. I do.
Fuck you.
For the Republican that doesn't, I think they're being short-sighted about this. I think this is something that can help the country.
But why did you? You were concerned about the presence of Jeff Bezos' girlfriend, weren't you?
Lauren Hernandez?
Yes.
Someone else.
Well, I think Zuckerberg had something to say about that, or maybe something to look at. But Harold, these and the people that are upset about these people, these are pioneers. These are not fat cat heirs to fortunes that their great-grandfathers made.
They're actually all immigrants who...
And we want them to work cohesively with government to defeat anything that China throws at us and modernize our economy. Because you look at some of these computers in the federal bureaucracy, these are not from 1980. Yeah, Harold. A lot needs to be done.
Why are you me? I
don't know. I'm just used to it.
I know, compared to Pritzker.
Right.
Well, the other thing is that's very exciting, I think, is that you have, because of Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy in particular, and I would say Pete Hegseth, you have young Americans who are now saying, sign me up, I want to work for the government, and they're some of the smartest Americans that we have. Nobody wanted to work for the government before, so that is a positive thing. Just to note, we believe this is the last marching band before President Trump is going to make some remarks and be introduced. So we are watching for that. I love a marching band.
Why wouldn't you?
Look at that. They're having the time of their life. My mom was in a marching band, and those are always the good kids. They get the good grades, they work so hard, and they keep everybody super